All right, you're on, Bob.
All right, so we'll bring the April 2024 meeting of the Auburn Water District Trustees to order at 4 p.m. And I need someone to approve the minutes of the regular meeting of March 20, 2024.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? All in favor, one abstention?
Yep.
Okay. Now, because the second item is we're going to go into an executive session in accordance with M1 MSRA 4056E to discuss a legal matter. And so we'll go to, so I have someone to move that. We go into executive session.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? All in favor.
All right.
We will open the door
That was quick.
when we're
Yeah.
done.
We're kicking you out.
All right, you're good to go.
Brenda, financial report update, please.
Yes, it's on.
Okay. Everyone hear me okay?
Yes.
Yeah.
Great. So taking a look at the income statement for the month of March, water sales continue to be favorable to budget, up about 4% year to date. And also interest income continues to perform well with our CDs. Operating miscellaneous revenue, that's things like customer finance charges, premise visits, truly miscellaneous. That's a little under budget, but that could even out easily. As for expenses, the UV treatment plant is over budget by quite a bit. There's some CMP costs in there, and I think just cost of parts have been higher than expected. And really the only other line item for expense I was going to mention was the insurances, which I actually think we talked about last time, just some timing of some bills. And everything else looks pretty good there. Any questions on that one? If not, we'll move on to the balance sheet. And our cash position is still good. We're not spending a lot right now on projects, so it's up about $230,000. Everything else is pretty flat right now. We did make some bond payments, and with any questions there, we'll move on to this stat page, which is really small. I gotta think of a better way to present this. It's too small.
It's used.
But it has lots of information.
It does. We already talked about revenues, but we are up compared to prior year as well as the budget. Not a huge amount, but still, it's good. Payroll is up a little bit over budget, but not significant, 5%. And we really haven't hit the ground too much on projects yet. I expect that'll change very soon. And we already spoke about cash. It's holding steady, actually increased a little bit this month. So that's all I had, and if anyone has any questions, happy to try to answer them.
You good?
Good. Thank you, Brenda.
Super. Good, thanks, Brenda.
Okay, thank you. I am going to drop off tonight, so thank you guys.
All right,
Thanks,
thank
Brenda.
you.
Now, I guess we're still going to be, for this meeting at least, ratifying the payment of bills.
Yep.
That may change next meeting, so would someone please move that we ratify the payment of bills?
Yeah, I'll second.
All in favor? All in favor? Okay. So, any questions on the bills? Okay, and we've already talked about how we're probably going to deal with that in the future.
Yep, we're gonna talk about that under purchasing policy.
Sounds good. So now we move on to department number five, the public comment from visitors. Public comment. This is the time for the public to speak if they would like to speak on an issue.
Just one thing very quickly, under old business, there's an item that refers to the Auburn stakeholder group having to, in my ad hoc committee, having to do with the septic and other related ordinances in the watershed. And there's been some vigorous citizen activity in the stakeholder committee, and we're hoping to finalize the septic parts of that ordinance change tonight at a later meeting. Mike will be there, Dan, and Jeff.
Great. Thank you, Steve. Caleb?
Is this my opportunity?
Yes, absolutely.
All right. So my name is Caleb Hewlett, property owner at 130 Springwater Road in Poland. Just here to speak to the board about a financial hardship pressed on me by the water district. Before I bought the property, I met with both Mike and Greg for assurances on water and sewer connection availability before purchasing the lot because of the moratorium on the road. I was given confirmation verbally and in writing through emails with tie sheets, confirmation from Mike that the stubs were in fact there. And to date I have a little over $3,000 in fees paid to the district with no stubs in place, a hefty bill from my excavation contractor with no stubs in place, and another $1,000 bill, a little bit under, from the district here for fittings to install a tap for a line that I was guaranteed would be there, and then also another $6,000 bill to bore underneath the street if I want to connect. When I asked for any assistance or direction, I was told from Mike to drill a well. Currently, after calling 5 different well companies, that's over a year out. So now I have a house with no way to water unless I pay a little over $15,000 out of my pocket, which I had to pull a loan out for on a home equity line to get access to the water that I was told was already there. So I am presenting this information in hopes that better judgment from the board might assist with some of those fees or assistance in putting those lines in, as I was told that they would be there.
Caleb, I really appreciate all your patience with us. As you know, we relied on these plans when we took this system over. We were given these as-builds and told that this is what was put in. When you had originally called and said, hey, I want to connect, we looked up your lot, we looked on this map, lo and behold, it showed stubs. And we were assured through our agreements that these were installed. As it turns out, they were not. When your contractor started having troubles, we stepped in and we also looked, and they're not there. It's totally unfortunate. We're going to look into this. We're going to look at our agreements with Poland and what was this is a copy of this agreement. I can get you a copy of this, and we'll render a decision to you what we can offer and how we can assist to get you connected. We want to have you as a customer. It's unfortunate we didn't have the stubs to connect you, but we are forced now to try to get you connected on the other side of the street. So yeah.
Something in writing.
Yeah, we'll get you something.
As
How long
in,
before the house is livable?
It's ready in about 2 weeks.
You know what's
needs water.
interesting is I have seasonal service up in Bethel, and of course it's not turned on again. I put rain buckets out, 55-gallon barrels. We've gotten so much rain, and I bought a 110-volt pump, and I've got like 60 psi pressure, but I'm taking Navy showers. Just an alternative until you get through. You know what I'm saying? If you get some rain buckets out there, I know it's not a great help, but otherwise this seems to be a legal matter and in a language matter, who's responsible, and then we'd have to rely on our superintendent. And
I would love to throw out this addition. For a number of years, I was the road foreman for Wells Sanitary District, And we've dealt with it, we dealt with this a lot, and every time that we assumed a contract and that was signed over to the district, we assumed full responsibility if there was no further due diligence on the district's behalf to prove that those lines were there. So I put in, or paid to put in, many connections for people that we said, yes, we have an as-built, yes, we had this put in by a contractor, but we assume responsibility after the 1 year. We sign that responsibility over and assume responsibility for that contract.
In that instance, the water district that you work for, they designed and built the system?
It was an engineered design.
Right.
That was done by...
That the district
Yes.
contracted for?
Correct.
And then you hired contractors to do the installation?
The difference in this case is the town of Poland designed this system. They paid to put this in. They took on that liability. They signed an agreement with us right here on this top paragraph, page 2, where they certify that it was all installed per the as-built. So this language is pretty clear on, you know, on our feeling on who is responsible for this, and we will render you this in a decision. We'll try to get this to you as, you know, within a day or so. Get this back to you.
Good. Thank you.
So,
Thank you, Caleb.
so we'll close the public comment, and we'll move on to the activity report. Project update with Mike.
All right, I'll do activity report first. Matt is out this week, so I'm covering this for him. He did prepare this information. Your activity reports, it's a different looking March. Normally in March, we're still shoveling hydrants and moving snow around. This year in March, we're working on our construction projects. We're ordering pipe. We're trying to get new connections in. So that's what you see reflected in your activity report here. Nothing really jumps out at me. We didn't have any water main breaks, knock on wood. Things were pretty quiet operationally. We were able to do a lot of proactive work and get ready for our very busy construction season coming up. One thing that's kind of come up that I did want to bring to all of your attention, you may read in some of the news media coming up in the next couple of days. As you all know, one of the big projects affecting us this summer is the Lewiston transmission main that's being installed. Phase 1 this year is going from Lewiston's Main Street pump station over to North River Road. That's phase 1. Phase 2 is going to take it the rest of the way up to the UV plant. So we had the pre-con meeting about a month ago. At the time, there was no issues, no conflicts between our systems, being water and sewer, and this proposed transmission main on some of the newer locations that this is going. But lo and behold, the contractor started digging. They didn't get very far, and now our water main is right smack dab in the middle of their way. So they're requesting that we, you know, shut down our main and cut and remove it so that they can lay their pipe through. That was not something that I agreed to. They went back to the drawing board and they proposed that they will cut and relocate our water main after they've gone through. They will pay all the costs associated with doing that, and they will even pay our time to inspect the work and to shut it down and turn it back on. The first shutdown and relocation is happening this Sunday night. I just did a bunch of press releases and outreach to the customers who are going to be affected. Obviously, this is right down on Main Street. This is right on Court Street coming into town. It's a very busy area. This is going to have a big impact on some large customers, so you may hear about that, but that is ongoing. There will likely be a second shutdown in the same area about 1 week after this first one this Sunday night. So there are two sections that they're going to need to cross and get underneath. Their pipe is going about 5 feet below ours, and it's a 24-inch pipe, so it's a big void. You just can't build a big void underneath a main that's under 90 pounds of pressure. You need to depressurize that and safely remove it so nobody gets hurt or injured or we cause any problems to our system. So I think this is the best plan to deal with this. I wouldn't want to have them go through and we leave that older infrastructure and then wonder if it's going to leak a year from now. by cutting it out and rebuilding, I feel better that that'll be good. So I just wanted you to be aware of that.
And one of your personnel will be there to shut off the water, supervise the work, and turn it back on again.
Yep, their working hours right now are like 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. The plan is to shut the main down at 8 p.m. Sunday night and to have it back on before 7 a.m. Monday morning. That's the plan.
Minimum impact then.
Should. There is a number of, there's a couple of restaurants are going to have to close early. They did have to, I guess they had to cancel a party that was scheduled. It's just a busy area. We have to basically go back to Festival Plaza, shut a gate down there, and then we have to shut down a gate at Turner Street. Luckily, there are a lot of mains down in that area, and it's gridded, so it's really only 5 customers that are losing water, but some of those customers have multiple businesses and residential living upstairs and that type of stuff. So it should be minimal. Hopefully it's quick. Everybody received the information very well today when I called them, so all the customers. So yeah, back into project update to wrap that up. We are very busy. We've started work on Dunn Street, getting the main replacement wrapped up there. 4th Street and Marion, those were reconstruction streets that the city had out to bid. Included in the bid was the replacement of our water mains. There's quite a bit of water main work up on, I think, around 3,000 feet on 4th Street, and there was about 1,000 feet on Marion that was in that contract. The contracts have been awarded to Gendron. Gendron does have a very aggressive schedule for this year and likely won't get to this work until next year.
Dan, is she getting deja vu?
Yeah, so kind of a mimic from what we talked about last night at the sewer meeting. It's kind of unfortunate for us because we're budgeting to do the water main work on 4th and Marion this year, and now it's not going to get done till next year, so we'll have to reallocate those funds in for next year and deal with that then. But unfortunately, it is the way the bid was written and awarded. So it's just an FYI. That's, I believe, is everything we had to report on the project update.
Thank you, Mike. Moving on to new business, water rate comparison.
All right, I know this is something we've been talking about for quite some time. Our rates here at the district. We have not raised the rates at the water district since 2019, actually. So just going to give this quick presentation I threw together. I know a lot of us got to slide to another meeting, so I'll try to keep these quick. So this does go over water and sewer. I'll try to just stick to the water stuff. As I mentioned, I'm sorry, it was 2020, not 2019. It was actually right at the very last month of, it was in November, I believe, of 2020. So we didn't get the full rate increase until 2020, that whole year. The last time we raised the water rates was then. In 2022, the water district bonded $2 million for capital projects. Prior to 2022, we've been using cash on hand, roughly $700,000 a year. We were dedicating towards doing about 1.5 miles of water main replacement a year. When we bonded the $2 million, we moved that up to 2 miles of pipe a year to replace. And we said we'll use up our cash on hand, whittle that down, and use the bond funds to fund work until we need our next increase. And this has served us very well the last couple of years. It's been working just as it was designed to do. But what we're looking at now is as we do our capital work this summer, you're going to see our cash on hand really start to draw down this year. We're not going to have that nice buffer. Sorry this came out so small. This comes right from your stats page. It's small on there. But this is our cash on hand. We're right around, I think, as reported tonight, $3.2 million cash on hand. This is the threshold. We do not like to go down below, I believe it's around $750,000. That's 90 days cash on hand. We do not like to go below that threshold. We do have about $1.5 million worth of capital work budgeted for this year, so you can figure that's going to come right out of this cash. That's going to put us close to our threshold. I did work quite a bit with Brenda at Maine Rural Water, and I spent a lot of time researching rates of other districts. Get it right on the PUC's website. you can find rates. Lo and behold, I found Auburn has the second lowest rates in the state at this current time. So as far as a water district goes, we're really providing a lot of value to our customers. We have a very low rate. I did pull, it's not on this
Okay.
spreadsheet. What I did pull on this spreadsheet, these are all unfiltered supplies. So comparing apples to apples, I'm not comparing us to somebody who has a full filtration, although for quick reference, there are two in here, Augusta and York, they both have filtration. The rest of these systems, Portland, Lewiston, Bangor, Dover, Foxcroft, Brewer, and Damascotta are all unfiltered, just like us here in Auburn. But you can see this is based off of 2,000 cubic feet of water actually per quarter, not per month. And this is where we currently sit. We do have very low rates. Some of the stuff we have going on, I was surprised to see through this benchmarking work that Maine Rural Water does, we're actually providing a lot of value. I shared with the sewer board, I'll have to get out of this, but there's some benchmarking work that basically shows not only where your rates stand, but where you stand as a utility. What's your bonded indebtedness? How much pipe are you getting replaced every year? How many water main breaks do you have every year? How many customer service leaks do you have? It breaks down about 150 categories, and it compares that to every water district. I was very pleased to see that we were at the bottom percentage for every category, and in the top percentage of categories where it showed that we were providing benefit, getting our hydrants flushed, turnover, stuff like that, we scored very high. So in addition to having very good rates, I think we're providing a lot of value, and we're doing a great job of running the system. So kudos to the board and everything that we're doing. Some of our water needs, staffing challenges. I will tell you, in the last year and a half, it's evident to me that since I started here at the district, we've gained about 500 customers. We've added miles of infrastructure. We've added pump stations. We've added booster stations. We've added a lot of assets to our system, but we have not increased our staffing. We're bringing in more stuff to do, but we have the same amount of people to do that with. It becomes a struggle. It's the day-to-day stuff here that gets you. Diane can tell you, she sits in our office, she hears the phone calls. It's the customer over here, the customer over there. It's when you keep adding to your customer base, the more you have, the more calls that come in, and it's just hard to. It's this shell game of making sure we're taking care of everything as best we can and answering all the calls. The cost to replace infrastructure has doubled in the last 2 years. The days of budgeting $50 to $75 a foot to replace pipe in-house is no more. As we planned for this year, we're up over $200 per foot to replace pipe. I mean, literally, it's more than doubled in the last couple of years. A couple of big projects that we're going to be looking at that we need to think about with our rates. Intake extension. This is something we've been talking about for a couple of years with Lewiston, conducting a study to determine if it makes sense to extend our intake in Lake Auburn to a deeper section that's less susceptible to wind, seasonal temperature changes, and stuff like that. The Lakeshore Drive culvert, we signed the MPI agreement with MDOT to replace the culvert out on Lakeshore Drive. We're going to need to pay our share of that. We need to factor that in. Phosphorus remediation. This is something that's been a big topic lately with the study work done by WRS and Ken Wagner. Phosphorus plagues Lake Auburn. Regardless if we stay on a filtration waiver or we have a filter plant, we need to keep phosphorus levels in Lake Auburn low. We can't deal with algae blooms if we have a filtration plant or if we have a filtration waiver. Algae equals cyanotoxins equals problems for water systems. We need to do phosphorus remediation. Some of the projects that were recommended by Ken Wagner were to the tune of $10 to $15 million projects. Big ticket items that we need to look at when we look at our rates. One option where we're currently sitting with our cash, we're in a pretty good position. The last thing we want to do is avoid rate increases forever, because at some point we're going to find that we desperately need the cash, and the last thing we want to do is have to raise the rates 20-30% to play catch up for not raising them for years.
Is that what Lewiston's doing now? What's there gonna be?
They haven't had a sewer rate increase in a while, but they've updated their water more recently than us.
How much, did you know roughly how much they had to go up?
I remember the last increase was around 24%, I believe. They did either 21 or 22. So one thing I'm going to be looking at with Brenda and our customer service manager is potentially recommending a structured rate increase so that we would increase a small percentage every year for the next 3 years. This would require one-time approval, through public hearing and then through PUC. That would net us about $150,000 a year for the next 3 years and increased revenue. And in that time, we also do have some bonds that are going to be timing out and paid off, so we'll have additional revenue that we'll realize there with, retired debt. I think this is realistically what the district's going to be looking at. My plan is to have specific recommendations in front of you by June to where we're going to be voting on this. So next month, plan on seeing this again in old business and what we bring back to you when we dive into this a little deeper. But that's really what I had for you tonight on rates. This kind of goes into sewer. You can see sewer's in a different position with cash. They're much closer to that threshold where they really need to consider raising rates, just as an FYI. The sewer district does have the lowest sewer rates in the state of Maine currently. I couldn't find anyone with lower sewer rates than our sewer district. So, and again, the statistics of the district, we're doing a great job. We're not in non-compliance, we're well maintained, and we're operating well. So kudos to us for doing it at a great value to the customers.
And to you.
So it's,
Hey, Mike, just a quick comment on sewer. I don't think the trustees here know that sewer rates are based on like 4 or 5 months in the winter time, because in the summertime, a lot of water is just used to wash cars or water the gardens. It doesn't go through our sewers. So we might be able to save sewer from a large rate increase if we shift, billing just year round, what the current meters are for water.
what Dan's talking about, this is kind of, I knew we do this. We've done this in Auburn for 20, 30 years, Diane?
Since I've been here.
So we've been doing this for a long time, but if you look at our rates, if you get on our website and you look at rates on the sewer district, you will see nothing about this. It's not on our rate sheet.
Right.
We don't brag about it, we don't take credit for it, we don't tell our customers about it. But what we do in the summer months, when we are assuming that customers are washing cars, watering lawns,
Gardens.
doing activity
Gardens.
outside that doesn't resort to the water making it into the sewer, we base their sewer usage off from the winter quarters. So it's an automatic thing that's in our billing software. That's a pretty big assumption to make, that everybody is watering their garden the same or washing their cars the same. It's a pretty big rebate that we wound up, we don't realize the true revenue of how much water we're actually selling to these customers.
Do other districts do that as
No. I couldn't.
How did that?
We're the only one.
How did that happen?
I know.
Other districts, like when I lived up in Bangor years ago, if you were doing all that kind of stuff, you could get a separate meter put
Yes.
in,
Yes.
and they deduct that reading
Or
off.
even if you're
Correct.
in a pool or
Right.
whatever.
Correct, and it's usually through a permissions thing where somebody calls in and said, hey, and we would, in the other districts that I work at, we would have a whole shelf of rental meters that we would then, we'll rent you this meter, we'll come out, we'll read it, and we'll deduct it off from your sewer bill, and that's what every other district I'd ever been at, that's what they had done. I had never seen this before. What's more surprising to me is we don't take credit for it. It's not on our rate sheet. Why is it not described on the rate sheet? So that's definitely something we have to address.
Yeah, it's something that should be,
Could be phased in,
yeah.
Or phased out.
or phased out.
Right.
Better.
Anyway, so yeah, that's what I had on rate comparison.
What's that something?
So we can move on.
Move on.
Move on to the district treasurer's policy, and there are 2 of them in our packet.
Yes, so in your packets, there are 2 things. There is a purchasing policy, and then there's a card holder policy. We've been working on this for quite some time. Over the last 5 to 6 years, every year when we get our annual audit, our auditors have a recommendation page, and they have been recommending to us for years to adopt a purchasing policy. So last year, the beginning of the year, my first year as superintendent, we're going to get a purchasing policy. So I had asked our finance director last year to start developing this. Unfortunately, with the turnover in that position, we never realized finishing this purchasing policy. More recently, we've hired a new customer service manager. We've blown the dust off from this. We've been meeting with staff. We've been going over it internally. This is exactly where I would like to see this policy be as somebody who manages the district. To me, this puts the control of authorizing spending at the trustee level when we get our approved budgets, and once you vote on the action items in the budget, it gives all the protocol for the staff to then spend the money, do the work, get this done, and check all the boxes that the auditor wants us to check. I was getting ready to, either this month or next month, I was going to have it on the agenda for the trustees to approve this, and as you know, last month, we asked about ratifying the payment of the bills, which is something that's come up a couple of times in the last 2 months. Every month we run down through after the financial reports a listing of all the checks that we write in a given month. The trustee board reviews those and votes on them to ratify them. The thing that's always been clunky for me to think about, well, what happens if they didn't ratify them? We already wrote the check. They already cashed it. These bills are already paid. Is this really a necessary step to then vote to ratify them? We brought this up at the sewer board. The sewer board liked the policy as it was written. A couple of comments where nobody would change it. And they feel that we could take, instead of ratifying the payment of the bills, we could just include the checks and the bills in the financial reports. So at next month's meeting, we won't have ratified payment of the bills as an agenda line item, but we will have the bills and all the checks that we pay listed in the financial reports. If trustees want to ask questions about those, we'd be happy to answer them. But we won't have to go through the step of voting to ratify the payment of the bills. So that's the way the sewer board saw this going. They did not recommend any changes to this policy, but certainly I want the water board to be able to review this. I'm not looking for a decision tonight. If you guys want to continue to have time to look at these, potentially we could have a vote on adopting the purchasing policy at the May meeting. But at that time as well, we can no longer present the ratifying of the bills.
How many cards do you have out there?
So we have, I believe we have 4 purchasing cards. So myself and Matt, our water treatment manager, and I believe our accounts payable, receivable clerk.
Who's getting the miles of the hotel points?
No miles, no hotel points. We don't make any points on the cards.
I know.
They're through Androscoggin Bank. They're pretty boring. They don't get a lot of use. It's
They're
only for
making their
kind of the
money.
special things.
I had just one question about one word on the purchasing policy, Auburn Water and Sewer District.
Sure.
1. On the second page, in the second paragraph, total cost bidding. I saw with it, should the district, start with the sewer, should the district superintendent. Then it goes down to the second line and it says, to award the bid to the lowest bidder, they may refer the award. Is they referring to the district superintendent?
Yes.
That's what I thought. Should, district superintendent is singular, but they is plural. Should they be a he/she?
Yes. Nice catch.
Well, maybe the superintendent.
Yeah. Just take out the Y.
Being
Does that work?
Being politically correct.
Right.
Amazar was where we been, has had due just in Viking could show would being in. Yeah, that's the right one.
Hey, retired teacher, you know, it's like, I see
Awesome.
this. The kids gave me work to look at, I scrutinized this. Thank you, Mike.
Oh, that's
Thank
very
you.
good.
So we can move on to the next one. Would you like to move on to the next one? We dealt with that.
I think we're all set on that.
We've
one.
dealt with
Yeah.
that. Let's go to old business, water quality update.
All right, water quality update. There is a turbidity trend in your packet. As you can see from the turbidity lines, the weather we've been having this spring has not been favorable for great water quality in Lake Auburn. The intensity of the storms, the wind that goes along with these storms has really combined with the early ice off. We're seeing much higher turbidity than we did last year at this time. I am very concerned with the status of the lake and where we're at. This has been an ongoing thing for over a year now with these high intensity storms. The Lakeshore Drive overtopped 3 times last year. The water level was so high it went up over the road. At this time, I believe our outlet dam is wide open. We're trying to get the lake level down. There's a lot of water out there. We're in no concern right now of having any violations, but it's just concerning if conditions are just right. If all of a sudden we go into a very hot summer and we have a high nutrient level, we could be subject to algae blooms. We may be looking at chemical treatment to stem that back in the lake potentially. So it's not something that I'm predicting right now, but it's definitely something I want you to be aware of. So that's what I had on water quality.
Thank you. District Service Territory.
All right, this is just an FYI and an update. I did get all of the information from our charters and our agreements with Poland over to Eden Peabody, and they do have an expert that's looking into whether or not we need to amend our charters to more accurately describe our service territory. So that's all I have for an update on that.
Good.
Hey, sorry, I'm just looking at the graph here. 3 NTUs is the limit, right?
5.
Okay, 5. I was gonna say we're spiking 3. I mean, what? And the other one is.
We do shut the plant down anytime we go over 2.
Okay.
So even when the number
And we
was
use
high,
reservoirs.
we weren't running. We were on our reservoirs.
Okay.
Yep.
Lake Auburn Stakeholders Group.
Cost apportionment. Cost apportionment.
I'm sorry, cost apportionment, I'm sorry.
Yep, this is pretty quick, so we're gonna have to do something to revive this group because they've kind of dropped like flies. As you know, Andy Titus and myself with the representatives of the Auburn Water District meet with Kevin Gagne and Heather Hunter from the city of Lewiston. We had a meeting this year. We talked about presenting some items to the drinking water program, which Kevin and I actually did last week. But since that time, Heather is no longer representing on this because she no longer works for Lewiston. Andy is no longer here at the water district. We're kind of getting to that, we may want to appoint different representation and to continue to work on this. Kevin and I met with the drinking water program. The reason we met with the drinking water program is because the last time we met, we talked about, to change the cost apportionment, we'd have to change agreements. If we were to change agreements, how would that look? Right now, according to the main drinking water program, the Auburn Water District has its own unique identification number, as does Lewiston. If we change the agreement, would it make more sense to have one water entity manage the treatment plant? Would it make more sense to have one entity manage the watershed? The shared agreement that we've had in the past has been good, but there are some inequities that we've pointed out, and if we're going to make changes, what else could we change? Basically, the drinking water program says we could do whatever you wish. Present to us what you'd like to do. Lewiston and Auburn, we would consider one water entity running it, one PWS ID number. We would continue to have it the way it is. They would do whatever. It's really up to us. There is nothing that they said no to. They said you could have formal water authority. We could do a whole host of things. But it really comes down to what do we want to do and what do we need to do. So really, to me, it doesn't really get us very far with the cost apportionment discussion, but it does answer some questions on, maybe how we could structure future agreements.
Mike, the EPA granted us the waiver, and it's the drinking water program that manages it and makes sure that we comply with it.
They are the delegated authority through EPA. Yep. So at this time I do not have another meeting scheduled to follow up with that. I don't know at what point Lewiston will reappoint a new administrator or somebody to continue those discussions.
I don't think that should be an issue. What's going on between the cities, there's been zero change. Brian was the assistant city administrator. He was involved in all the day-to-day activity. It could be many months before they're going to do a search, go through the whole hiring process. It could be a long time before they get an administrator. So I wouldn't let the fact that Brian is acting, it's not like, they brought somebody in from the outside that doesn't know what's going on. So I would think that shouldn't be an impediment, and you should continue on, have a meeting. The board should appoint someone from the board as it was before to accompany you and then call them up and continue the
Schedule a
discussion.
meeting. Okay.
Is this what we put Steve Milks on,
No, we put him on the water quality ad hoc group.
ad hoc group? So can I make a motion, and if he's willing to accept, to nominate?
You couldn't have anybody outside. Lewiston's not gonna recognize anybody outside the board of directors. No authority to have a discussion. I mean, it's basically a negotiation that you're having with them.
Well, I'm wondering if you could have a discussion with like the senior councilman, isn't that like the mayor's position in Lewiston? The senior councilman, like, hey, we'd like to have fair cost apportionment, you know, as a trustee and as a mayor of the city of Auburn? That
So,
wouldn't work.
so in Lewiston, they have a president of the council,
President.
which is Scott Harriman, and Scott's position is basically as the representative of the council itself. He didn't have any authority, any really beyond representing the council. So you have the mayor, but as I would understand it, the discussion that's going on here is between the two parties to the agreement, which is the city of Lewiston and the Auburn Water District, and the person for day-to-day administration in Lewiston is the city administrator. So I don't think it's gonna change over there. I think it'd be Brian O'Malley and it'd be Kevin. I suppose at some point they're gonna appoint somebody, there's somebody acting, I guess, right, Mike, that's running the water division?
Kevin has been permanently appointed to Public Works Director.
Yeah, and somebody's gonna backfill his job.
They're currently hiring, they're advertising.
Right. But so right now, I think on the Lewiston side, it'd be Brian O'Malley and Kevin still.
You're not allowed to go over Lewiston, by the way.
Oh, yeah, no. You're good, you're good.
So I would think
Thank you.
you'd appoint somebody from the Board of Trustees, like you had Andy before, and Mike, and just continue on with the conversation
Yeah.
that was going on with that.
So anyone interested in doing that? Dennis?
I have,
Okay.
sure.
Everybody else quickly take one step back.
Right.
So do,
Just sounds to me from what you said, that the next step for the two cities to figure out how they want to do something is to move beyond what they've already done and investigate whether creating a joint authority like drinking water program is willing to look at is, that's kind of what I'm thinking is worthwhile, and whether the savings there and how you approach that. But
Yeah, basically, you know, one thing that we had talked about at the beginning of this year was doing like an audited chart of accounts to really, what is the breakdown? What are we currently paying? What are they currently paying? How are we currently apportioning and splitting costs? Some costs are apportioned based on flow. Some are fixed based off our interlocal agreements that say, you know, we will both pay 50%. You know, doing a true audited accounting of that was where I thought we were going to be going at the beginning of 2024. We did meet and we talked about, yeah, that would be good, but before we go to that step, how would we, our agreements that we've both signed have said, we'll pay this. How could we would have to have a new agreement. So that's where we kind of left off.
So I think you need to think of it as two sets of agreements. They're not the same.
Right.
So on the water quality protection side, it's what Mike was talking about earlier, which is whatever he calls the basic agreement, but it's basically the 1993 Interlocal Agreement 1, which has a very different set of terms and conditions in that, and that interlocal agreement is in effect a contract. And that has one set of conditions, and that's sort of the water quality piece. And then there's a pile, depending on who's counting, from someplace between like 18 and 22 interlocal agreements and memorandums of understanding, and for lack of a better term, on the consumption side, right? Once you suck the water out of the lake and it's going through the treatment plant before it hits the two distribution networks, there's a whole big group of some signed and some unsigned, but people are using them agreements. So I think that if cost apportionment is the primary issue, I think you need to have a discussion of each of those separately, because there's different terms and conditions. As Mike points out, on this consumption side, there's many, many of them, and some are by flow and some are 50-50, and I think that was the piece, Mike, you and Kevin Gagne were talking about, is not on that, on the consumption side, not just figuring out what the correct apportionment is, but it's also a question of, is there a better way to manage that piece?
Right.
So I think those are the two things that I think from, I wasn't there in these, but from what the trustees have said from these past discussions, that the water district's position on this has been pretty clear. And I think, in effect, what we're waiting for is Lewiston, for these two, the two buckets, if you will, of the consumption piece and the water quality piece, for Lewiston to tell us what their position is on this, and if they're willing to enter into a discussion about modifying all or some of those, I don't know, maybe none of those. We don't really know, because they haven't said yet, and I think that's what we need to find out, because to some point, we're negotiating against ourselves at the moment, because you guys keep having these discussions, and they don't answer that question. So I think it'd be beneficial to have that discussion, see what their position is on those things, and see if they're willing to discuss this stuff further.
No, that sounds good. I will email you a full summary of all of our interlocal agreements, because there are a number of them.
I read 16 of them, I thought.
Okay.
I didn't know there were more, but.
I think there's 19 total.
Dennis, you still with the PUC? But you have that knowledge too of fair rates and practices too, so.
And allocations and all that kind of stuff.
Awesome.
That's awesome.
Perfect.
We're good?
We're good?
We're good. Let's move on to the Lake Auburn Stakeholders Group Water Quality Ad Hoc Committee update.
Yes, they're actually meeting right now.
No.
Oh, it starts at 5? Oh,
5:30.
5:30. Oh, okay, good, good,
That's why
good.
we're here.
Well, I wondered if people would start trickling out.
Dedication, Mike.
So-
right here.
So, I can give an update
Sure.
on the septic thing, because we've been working, Steve and I, were working with the staff on the drafting. So, there's, at the meeting tonight, for septic only, because, I don't know, Dan, you're there, and Steve here. Mike, you weren't there the last time, but I think the agriculture is a ways off. They're still sort of circling around the concepts. We'll see where they get. On the septic thing, we had this whole drafting exercise to take what the group said. We've drafted that language up. The group will have it to review tonight. There's a couple questions outstanding, but I think, as Steve, mentioned earlier, I think that the septic stuff, hopefully, we can have a draft that the group agrees to tonight, and then we'll see where we get. And agriculture is supposed to also be reporting on May 6th to the city council, but we'll see if that happens. I'm not confident.
Thanks, Jeff.
Perfect.
Move on.
Moving on.
Move on to Lake Shore Drive MPI.
All right, I did send a formal request letter to Lewiston requesting their partnership on our half of the MPI award. So I did have a long conversation with Kevin about this, and he's on board, but he needs to get his council on board with funding this. There is a watershed commission meeting tomorrow, and I am going to bring this up at the watershed commission. I actually feel this is a watershed item. This is not a treatment plant thing. This is not a distribution main. This is a watershed asset, and I believe this should be funded through the commission. Still means that we need to kick in our share to the commission to fund it, but I feel this project belongs in their hands. So I'm going to present that at tomorrow night's meeting, And I did put in a formal request to Kevin stating that I'm gonna present this to the commission and that we need him to advocate in Lewiston to fund this project, because it is very important to water quality in the lake. So that's where that's at.
Thank you.
Do you
Everybody-
know if, because they're pretty far along in their budget process, do you know if he has submitted anything yet?
He has submitted his items already, but he felt like there may be some wiggle room in one of their other accounts that they
Okay.
could fund that project under.
So he's not under some, he doesn't need to get it into, he thinks he can, with the permission of the council, he can fund this without putting in a new capital item in the budget.
Correct. Yeah, that's what he
Yeah,
felt.
that
but
would be great.
He said, send me the formal letter, and I said, I'll do that. So
Yeah.
I got it to him last week.
Great. Good. On
Yes.
top of everything all the time.
Trying.
We're good on that?
Yep.
LCRR update.
All right, last page of your packets, there's just some stat numbers here. I know this is kind of a crazy sheet. There's a lot going on here. We've been keeping you up to date on this. Lead and copper rule revision by EPA is requiring that the district submit a lead service line inventory by October of 2024. We are working on this. Good news is if we had to submit our inventory today, we could. We've gone through all of our information. I could submit our inventory today. Bad news is, well, there's bad news and good news here. We did find records that showed 42 lead services in Auburn. So that's records saying that there was lead pipes that served homes in Auburn. As of today, we excavated every one of those 42 lead services, and not one of them was lead.
Oh,
They
good.
were all copper, they were all brass, they were all materials that are of no concern to EPA. They can come off of our list. So we've checked that box. The next big hurdle, we do not have any services that qualify for galvanized requiring replacement. What is that? Any galvanized service that's downstream of any lead line. If you have galvanized and it's downstream of lead, or it's ever been downstream of lead, you must replace the galvanized in addition to the lead. Ever been downstream of lead. But good news is we don't have any galvanized requiring replacement. The bad news is where we're stuck with the bad news here is we have about 994 services on our side that we don't have a record for them. So we have to report unknown, unlikely lead. But if you report unknown, they're going to assume it's lead. We also have 4,769 unknowns on the private side of our services, which is a big number. We have been working on this. We are going to be unveiling a lot of public outreach. We're going to be having self-report surveys. We're going to have a lot of letters going out to our customer base, where our staff is already, any opportunity they have to get into homes to confirm what material type is. We're really, these numbers are changing every day. I did apply for another grant. I did meet with the state last Thursday when Kevin and I went up to talk about the PWS ID numbers and management. We spent an hour talking about LCRR before that, and I presented these numbers to the state, and they did tell me about a grant that I wasn't aware of. It sounds like it's a kind of a slam dunk thing, and we could get up to $25,000. So I submitted an application for that 2 days ago. It sounds like we'll get it. We'll probably be staffing a couple of summer interns with that money and organizing with them to go out and door knock and do basement inspections and try to chip away at that 4,800 unknown category. The good news is when we submit our inventory in October, the fact that we're removing any lead and any likelihood of lead, we will have time to work on these unknown categories. There will be a compliance period. So I think it's good news. It sounds like we're in really good shape. The drinking water program was impressed so much they want to send 2 staff members down tomorrow to see what we're doing so they can show other water districts in the state. Look what they're doing and how they're excavating these services. Other systems need to do that. So
Feather in your cap.
they're coming down tomorrow to see how we're doing it. So that's good news.
That is good news.
Yep.
That is good news. So we're good on that. So now we have the trustee open session. Anyone?
Small item, newer trustees, can we get an update next meeting on the garage and the real estate and what your needs might be to get some of this equipment under cover. Even if we got another structure from another municipality upgrading, like what are they doing with the firehouse, right? Could the steel beams be used, to enclose, stuff like that? Maybe we get that on the agenda.
Sure.
At some point, you mentioned deja vu earlier, Dan. The contract that the General Company can't get to this year, I understand the savings associated with that, but it seems to me, just from watching what's going on with you guys, you're a bit busy. And I don't know that the savings on the contract equals the amount of cost that is being incurred by the district by having to reposition itself in all of these projects. And I don't want to take up time with that, but I think that's something that ought to be thought about.
The Gendron one, Mike, as I understand it, it was a city contract, right? So I made a note on here to talk to Phil about whether they have a performance period in these bids or not, because just from the brief information in here, it seemed like they bid it, they got the low bid in, and there was no performance period, and the bidder said, yeah, I'll get to it the next year, after they had awarded. So I'm gonna ask him about that, because you would think they'd bid it out and say, it's gotta be completed by this time, and if you can't do that, don't bid.
The change was about 5 years ago. There used to be a requirement that they have 75% substantial completion in the year of the award. So if you bid on a project to do Marion and 4th this year, you would have to have 75% of it done this year, only to wrap up a small percentage of it next year. Maybe you're finished paving next year, get the rest of next year. That has been removed. There is no requirement of any certain percentage of work to be done in the first year. And what it has done is it's made it more attractive for larger bidders to say, well, I can secure that work, not for this year, they want it for next year. It guarantees them. But I get it, that's great for them, and maybe that's getting the city or us better pricing.
That's
I don't
a
know
good
if it's serving
question,
us well.
but the other thing to remember is there's now almost no competition.
That's
I mean,
another big
we're
problem.
getting some of these bids, there's one bidder. The paving bid was, we got one bid. So we've been, on some of the smaller jobs, non-DOT jobs, we've been getting 2 bids, and one company just bought the other one. So, I don't know, I want to talk to Phil about that, because the question comes, they say they'll do it next year. What happens next spring comes, they say, well, we're going to put it on September, and September comes and they say we didn't get to it. How long, what's the parameters on that?
There's gotta be some kind of parameter.
Well, you would think so.
My gosh.
How's the contract work too? I'm just curious, because what if the price of oil goes through the roof and then asphalt's through the roof and then...
That's on them.
That is
Is
on
it?
them.
Okay,
They're locked in on that price.
Yeah.
There's no multiplier for next year if this work doesn't go in next year. The risk on us is the material costs, because part of this bid for the water work, we supplied the materials. So my question is right now, do I order the pipe? They're not gonna do it this year. Do I tie up our money on buying the pipe this year, or do I wait and order the parts next year?
Well,
It's something we have to figure out on our end on how we manage that part. But actually, this is a really good topic. I'm glad you brought that up, because it is something that's really starting to get to me where maybe we need to just go on projects our own and put out our own bid projects and get the work done in the calendar year. And if there's still opportunities for savings for combining our projects in the future, we'll do that. But the big part in combining with this is we don't pave the road. The city's covering that in their reconstruction costs. We don't pay that upper 4 foot of gravel that when they reconstruct the road, we're not paying for that in the price to replace the pipe. So we're saving a lot of money by partnering on these bids.
Well, but that's balanced out against the uncertainty of managing your project.
Jamming us next year.
Yeah,
when
well,
we've
what
got
happens if next
10
year the
projects.
Board of Trustees has a full plate of things and you're coming in here saying, well, these 2, they just shoved them into next year, so what do you want to do?
You're absolutely right.
I'll talk to Phil about it and report back at the next meeting what they said about the engineering. the
We'll,
road
and we'll,
engineering.
we'll have this on new business next month.
Thanks, Jeff.
Motion to adjourn?
I was just gonna, let me finish right here. Yes, move to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor? All in favor? At 4:16, 5:16, 5:16.
You're good.